Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom. Let's dive straight into the day's headlines. High-level diplomacy in San Francisco. The top diplomats of South Korea and the US put their heads together on North Korea and the tensions in the Middle East. Nothing to fear. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says North Korea shouldn't be concerned about Washington threatening its security. He says he's hopeful denuclearization talks can resume soon. Plus, fearing the worst, concerns are rising that the volcano in the Philippines that has been billowing ash and smoke for days could be about to erupt in a big way. Our top story this morning, the top diplomats of South Korea and the US, they've been discussing North Korea as they look to revive momentum in the stalled denuclearization talks. That was just one of the topics they touched upon. Our Kim Min-ji starts us off.
The top diplomats of South Korea and the US reaffirmed their close coordination on North Korea. Seoul's Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa and U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met near San Francisco on Tuesday to discuss the situation on the Korean Peninsula, alliance issues, and other regional and international matters. Speaking to reporters following the meeting, Kang said, broadly speaking, talks between North Korea and the U.S. and between the two Koreas should complement each other and go through a virtuous cycle. She added that Seoul and Pyongyang must continue to make efforts wherever they can to keep alive the momentum for North Korea's engagement amid the nuclear standoff between the North and Washington. That said, Kang and Pompeo shared views on initiatives which the two Koreas can work on without violating UN sanctions, and Pompeo showed understanding for Seoul's determination. The talks were the first between the two diplomats in 9 months and come after North Korea warned of taking shocking actual action and threatened to showcase a new strategic weapon. On rising tensions in the Middle East, Kang and Pompeo vowed close cooperation. As for a U.S.-led initiative to safeguard the Strait of Hormuz near Iran, Kang said that the U.S. holds the position that countries that have a large economic stake in the region must contribute to such efforts. Noting that South Korea relies on the area for oil imports, Kang said that Seoul is interested in the matter and will be considering ways to contribute, but that a decision will be made based on the safety of the Korean people and companies in the region, as well as its ties with Iran. The talks were followed by a trilateral meeting with Japanese Foreign Minister Toshimitsu Motegi. The diplomats agreed that three-way cooperation is essential to ensure regional peace and security, and reaffirmed the importance of coordination for achieving North Korea's denuclearization. Kang and Motegi also held a one-on-one on the sidelines to discuss efforts to solve their bilateral row over trade and historical issues. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, as a follow-up to that report, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says he remains hopeful North Korea will eventually give up its nuclear weapons program. He also took the opportunity to stress to Pyongyang that the U.S. does not pose a security risk to the regime's survival. Jaein with the details.
2 steps forward and a step or 2 back. Those were the words of U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, according to a transcript released by the State Department this week regarding the current situation with North Korea. Speaking to Silicon Valley business leaders in San Francisco on Monday local time, Pompeo said Washington remains in communication with the North as it tries to persuade the regime to denuclearize. He said he remains hopeful North Korea will make the right decision, not just for the world, but for the North Korean people as well. The top U.S. diplomat added that the North's weapons systems pose a real risk to the world, but insisted the U.S. doesn't pose a security risk to the North Koreans. He added that the Trump administration wants a brighter future for the people of North Korea, and if the right arrangement is made, the two sides can have a serious conversation and hopefully convince North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to move away from nuclear weapons. Outwardly, Pompeo has repeatedly expressed hope that more dialogue between the two sides will happen again soon. However, there has been little sign out of Pyongyang that the regime is ready or even willing to restart talks with the U.S. Jaein, Arirang News.
The U.S. has sanctioned 2 North Korean entities, including one based in China, for facilitating the regime's practice of sending laborers abroad in violation of international sanctions. According to the U.S. Treasury Department on Tuesday, the sanctions target North Korea-based Namgang Trading Corporation and the China-based North Korean lodging facility called Beijing Sukbakso. North Korean workers sent overseas are believed to be a major source of income for the regime. The sanctions freeze the designated entity's property and interests in the U.S. or in possession of any Americans and bans all U.S. dealings with them. Now, despite relations going off the boil somewhat in 2019, it turns out South Korea has provided the largest amount of assistance out of any country to North Korea so far this year. According to the United Nations, a total of $7.7 million has been delivered to the North in the first couple of weeks of 2020 for health and sanitation projects. South Korea has provided $5.7 million. Switzerland and Germany were second and third on the list, respectively. Now, President Moon Jae-in, in his New Year's press conference to the nation on Tuesday, said talks on North Korea's denuclearization will eventually turn out well, but he said time is of the essence, especially with the US pretty much already in full presidential election mode. Shin Se-min has this report.
President Moon Jae-in remains confident that the talks with North Korea will turn positive, despite the regime having warned the South to stay out of the nuclear talks with the U.S. During his annual New Year's press conference, the president said despite the lack of progress seen on the denuclearization front, it is still too early to be pessimistic.
외교란 것은 눈에 보이는 부분보다 눈에 보이지 않는 부분들이 더 많이 있습니다. 남북 관계도 어려움을 겪고는 있지만 그러나 대화를 통해서 협력을 늘려나가려는 그런 노력들은 지금도 지속되고 있고 그리고 충분히 잘 될 수 있을 것이라고 저는 이 낙관적인 전망을 가지면서 추진해 나가고 있다는 말씀을 드립니다.
He added that the recent exchanges, which included a birthday message from Trump to Kim, is a positive sign that underscores their commitment for negotiations. And he said the exchange also shows that the regime has not completely shut the door for more talks and expressed his hope for more active inter-Korean cooperation to keep pace with the denuclearization process and help ease international sanctions. Admitting that there is stalemate in talks between Pyongyang and Washington, the president said that the denuclearization talks are short on time.
미국이 지금 국내적으로도 지금 대선 국면에 접어들기 때문에 조금 더 시간이 흘러서 마지막 대선이 본격적인 국면에 들어서게 되면 이제는 북미 대화를 위해서 시간 자체를 마련하는 것이 이렇게 쉽지 않을 수 있습니다.
Echoing the strong Seoul-Washington partnership, the president said there are a number of issues to consider in reviewing the possibility of deploying South Korean troops to help safeguard the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz amid heightened tensions in the Middle East. With South Korea having diplomatic relations with both the U.S. and Iran, he said a comprehensive solution seems necessary. On the issue of diplomacy with Japan, President Moon said Seoul-Tokyo relations remain healthy, except for the issue of forced labor and export controls, a relationship that turned south over differences on historical matters. And on seeking a solution on the issue of compensation for the forced Korean labor during Japanese colonial rule, the president said the most important part is coming up with a settlement that the victims can agree on. President Moon once again calls for a cooperative solution, saying that Japan too should present its own solution to resolve the issue of forced labor compensation matter, perhaps signaling for a more face-to-face dialogue between the two sides. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Concerns are rising that the volcano in the Philippines, which has been spewing ash and smoke kilometers into the sky this week, could erupt in a big way at any moment. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Yoon Jung-min. So Jung-min, it seems people there really are now bracing for what could be a major eruption at any time.
Well, that's right, Mark. Since the Taal Volcano pumped a massive cloud of ash into the sky on Sunday, there are growing signs a hazardous eruption is still possible. Frequent earthquakes, fissures, or cracks have been detected around the volcano, which could indicate a major eruption is imminent. Seismologists also say an eruption could potentially trigger a tsunami. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology said the surface activity of the Taal's main crater has eased slightly, but there is still magmatic and hydrovolcanic activity. Also, fissures have been spotted on the ground where the volcano is located.
What the tremors mean is that there are magma rising to the surface. With the tremors are reports of fissures in areas and towns surrounding Taal Volcano, which is associated most likely to the rise of magma, causing pressures to the faults and fissures, triggering earthquakes and causing more cavities.
The authorities are maintaining an alert level 4 out of maximum 5 since the first eruption began last weekend. Level 4 means a hazardous eruption is imminent or may occur within days or hours. If the level is raised another notch, it means a hazardous eruption is already in progress. So far, more than 24,000 people have been evacuated from nearby areas. Schools and businesses were closed across Manila on Monday due to clouds of ash covering the city. France, Britain, and Germany will open a dispute mechanism against Iran at the Joint Commission for violating its 2015 nuclear deal with 6 world powers. In a joint statement Tuesday, the 3 countries accused Tehran of not complying with the deal, also known as the JCPOA, and they had no choice but to start the process. Their opening of the dispute mechanism could eventually lead to UN sanctions against Iran, but they insist the move is aimed at saving the deal. Iran dismissed the actions, saying the European measures were passive. Iran has stepped away from its commitments to the 2015 pact, as it announced this month it will scrap limits on enriching uranium. The UN's global health body says there could be limited human-to-human transmission of the new pneumonia virus, which recently broke out in China. The World Health Organization said Tuesday for the first time that it appears the virus can be transmitted between people under certain circumstances, but limited. The WHO says it's preparing for the possibility of a wider outbreak, as the situation is still in its early phase and they don't yet have a clear clinical picture. The organization says it sees a lot of similarities between the new virus and SARS or MERS, which could help health authorities when it comes to developing vaccines or medicines.
Now, back here in South Korea, the nation's unemployment rate remained steady at 3.4% last month, with over 500,000 new jobs added to the economy. According to Statistics Korea on Wednesday, the number of employed people reached around 27 million in December. The overall employment rate, those in work, last year reached almost 61%. That's a 22-year high. Statistics Korea attributed the rise to the government's job creation policies. By sector, jobs increased in the social and health services and the accommodation industry, but fell in finance and construction, as well as in the wholesale and retail sectors. Samsung Electronics acquired the second most patents in the US market in 2019. The South Korean tech giant has held the number 2 ranking for 14 consecutive years now. Global patent database IFI claims reports over 333,000 patents were registered in the United States last year. IBM was first with over 9,200 patents, Samsung 6,400. Samsung's local rival LG Electronics was 6th. Other companies in the top 10 include Canon, Microsoft, Intel and Apple. Chinese firm Huawei ranked 10th, joining the top 10 for the first time. Samsung was first in the number of active patent family, which refers to holding a patent that registered in multiple countries. South Korean auto giant Kia Motors has rolled out a multi-billion-dollar plan to develop electric cars and other eco-friendly mobility solutions. Now, this move is part of Kia's efforts to become a truly global leader in the rapidly expanding automotive field. Hong Yu with the details.
Kia Motors announced on Tuesday that they will invest $25 billion over the next 6 years for developing electric vehicles and mobility solutions. With such investment, Kia Motors plans to achieve a share of 6.6% of the global electric vehicles market in 2025, up from the current 2%. This medium-term business strategy, what Kia calls it Plan S, aims not just to adapt, but to lead the future automobile industry by becoming an innovative brand. Kia Motors is also renewing its brand to attract younger customers. The company is releasing its first all-electric model next year, and it plans to have 11 EV models in 2025. These electric vehicles will be able to perform as well as an SUV and will be capable of driving 500 kilometers once fully charged, with charging taking just 20 minutes. Kia aims to sell 500,000 EVs and 1 million environmentally friendly cars worldwide in 2026. And in major cities around the world, Kia will establish a mobility hub to provide charging stations and repair shops for electric vehicle drivers. It also looks to operate robot taxis and on-demand robot shuttles based around these mobility hubs. Hong Yu, Arirang News.
Now, the European Union has unveiled a massive investment plan to make Europe a climate-neutral continent by the year 2050. The European Commission said Tuesday that its 1 trillion, yes, that's trillion with a T, euro, or 1.1 trillion US dollar plan will make the EU's economy more environmentally friendly and tackle climate issues over the next decade. The investment will be funded by the public and private sectors in the EU. The Commission first proposed a so-called European Green Deal last year. Officials say member countries applying for financial support should present a detailed plan to Brussels on how they plan to slash emissions. Now, a few days after Parasite became the first South Korean film to earn an astonishing 6 Oscar nominations, the movie's director has been sharing his thoughts on the picture's absolutely amazing worldwide success. Lee Min-sun reports.
Bong Joon-ho, who has been making history with his highly acclaimed film Parasite, has spoken out for the first time about the moment he realized the movie had won 6 Oscar nominations, becoming the first South Korean film to compete at the Academy Awards in the process.
Every time they announced the new nominations, it was so thrilling because we didn't really anticipate this. When we were making the film, we never knew it would lead to this moment. So it was very exciting and intensely pleasing.
Among the categories it's in, Parasite is up for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best International Feature Film at next month's Academy Awards. The black comedy is about the social disparity that exists in people's daily lives, regardless of their cultural or social background. It was that theme that crossed borders and hit home with audiences around the world. But Bong says there was something more.
I think the film felt friendly because class is something we all experience in our daily lives. But I think what's really new is how the narrative progresses and how the film explores these issues. A lot of American audience members have told us that Parasite was very unpredictable, and I think that's why people really enjoyed it.
Bong has been sweeping international film awards with Parasite, including the famed Palme d'Or and the Best Foreign Language Film Award at Golden Globes, where he gave a speech encouraging international audiences to adopt subtitles so they can explore an entirely new realm of films.
Perhaps the language barrier was, broken. Maybe my speech became a little too late. The fact these nominations came while Parasite is enjoying such great box office success in the U.S., that's what's really important and makes me happy.
He added the Oscar nominations not only contributed to breaking down language barriers, but at the same time, Parasite benefited from the global trend of the already lowered barriers between cultures thanks to the internet, social media, and streaming services.
Things are slowly changing. I'm hopeful that through the singular language of cinema, we can overcome these barriers.
The Oscar winners will be announced at the 92nd Academy Awards on February 9th in Los Angeles. 이민선, Arirang News.
Now, the Korea Image Communication Institute has honored a K-pop columnist and jazz vocalist for their contributions to the local music industry. Kan Hyung-woo with the details.
Two of this year's Korea Image Awards were given to individuals recognized for their contributions to the Korean music industry. K-pop columnist Jeff Benjamin received the Stepping Stone Bridge Award for introducing K-pop acts to the world and building a bridge between Korean artists and a global audience.
The language is less important when it comes to the music that they listen to. I think it's certainly becoming more about the artists and what their message is and what they show and what their talent is. And so much to the point that I almost feel like the K part that we're talking about will become less emphasized, but it will be about the actual artist and what they can show for themselves.
The K-pop columnist believes that the key to having a larger impact in the music industry is having a message that is unique and different. Meanwhile, jazz vocalist Na Yun-sun, who was recently given a top honor by the French Culture Ministry, received the Firestone Award for promoting Korean culture to international audiences through her work.
Good music and emotional genres are not limited by borders anymore. I hope Korean artists can tap into bigger markets, reach a wider audience, and have a positive influence. I will try harder myself.
She added that nowadays, various Korean musicians are seen in Europe, unlike in the past when such Korean influence was hard to find. Since 2005, the Korea Image Communication Institute has dedicated itself to building a good image of Korea on the international stage and given out annual awards to people and organizations for their contributions in promoting Korea. Kan Hyung-woo, Arirang News.
Good morning. This cold snap continues to grip Korea, and temperatures will be similar to yesterday, but icy winds are making it feel colder. And northern parts of the country are dealing with severe cold, with a cold wave advisory remains in place. And meanwhile, a dry weather advisory is covering many eastern regions, that's including Daegu, Ulsan, and Busan. I mean, we can feel that the air is getting drier each day. Drinking plenty of water is a great idea. And these tips should also help us tackle dry winter skin, so keep them in mind. Back to today's forecast. Daily highs will range between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius, similar to yesterday, under mostly sunny skies with decent air quality. The cold will ease from tomorrow afternoon, and we can expect milder conditions this weekend, but snow is in the forecast for Sunday in the central parts of the country. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all the news and weather we have for now on this Wednesday morning here in Seoul. Stay tuned to Arirang TV. Plenty more coming up And that includes our next newscast at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.
Arirang's news program, The Point, covers relevant issues that are shaping the world, from major political events to local